We had to find some type of purpose in the pain that we were feeling and try to keep other families from having to deal with that. So we decided that, we had to do something. So we came together and created MCOPE.
Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey. We'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. In each episode, we will come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters, growth and progress, not perfection, all while developing positive habits for you to utilize. To learn more, please visit positiverecovery.com/podcasts to sign up and to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive Positive Recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started. I am super excited to be here today on Positive Recovery MD. Our conversation today is going to be about love that refuses to end, courage that rises from heartbreak, and community that transforms pain into purpose. I'm honored to sit with this extraordinary group of moms who, after the loss of their children or the involvement in addiction, chose connection over isolation and meaning over silence. Through MCOPE, they are living examples of post-traumatic growth, collective resilience, and enduring love in action. This episode is not just about grief. It's about the power of belonging. It's about how purpose can emerge from profound loss. It's about hope, how hope can coexist with sorrow. And it's about the strength that becomes available when moms and the community stand shoulder to shoulder and say, "You are not alone." In positive psychology, we often talk about meaning, resilience, compassion, and legacy. Today, you will hear those principles not as theory, but as lived experience. You will hear how love continues, how advocacy becomes healing, and how remembrance becomes movement. So as you listen, we invite you to notice the courage in these stories, notice the connection, and notice the light that shines through. Because even in the darkest chapters, our spirit has an extraordinary capacity to grow, to give, and to guide others forward. And so I feel, just for those that are listening, I'm like choked up already. And that's always like a weird thing to start a podcast out, being choked up. But in this moment, I feel so fortunate to have met Kathy, Kim, and Paige, because they have made me a better human being. They have made me understand and be more compassionate. And so rather than me not do them justice by introducing them, let me just tell you that I am better because of them. And I'd love for them to share a little bit about themselves with you and how MCOPE got started. So Kathy, why don't you start?
My name is Kathy Posey, and I'm one of the founders of MCOPE. And I was retired until we started this organization. Been married 35 years, have 2 beautiful boys. My oldest is Josh, and he's my reason for MCOPE. We lost him at 23 years old to an accidental overdose. And I also have another son that is doing great. He's married and has a son of his own. So I have my first grandchild.
That's amazing. And what is your grandson's name?
It's William Joshua Posey. It was a really nice surprise when they said that they were going to incorporate Josh's name in his name. But I'm choked up thinking about it.
Yeah, for them, that's their way of showing that love does continue.
Yes, it really does. They've always been very good about including him even in their wedding with various things and stuff. So it as a mom, it makes me just feel really good to know that they're honoring him too.
Thank you, Kathy. How about you, Kim?
Good afternoon. I'm Kim Robbins, and I'm one of the founders and active directors for MCOPE. My reason is I lost my son, Stephen, at the age of 24. I lost him 6 years ago to an accidental overdose. He was actually doing really good. He was only 9 days out of a rehab and doing wonderful. And his first relapse was his last. I'm also married. I have 2 other children. Stephen was my baby, but Andrew and Brandy are my 2 other children, and they're both married. Brandy has 3 children, so I have 3 grandchildren. They live really close, so they're a lot of fun. So I'm also been with a children's hospital here in Houston for the past almost 32 years. So that's my full-time job. MCOPE is my second. Obviously unpaid, our unpaid job, but we love it.
Sure. And sometimes I know it's just as important as your full-time job, right? Making sure that the message gets out there.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the work that you do. And in the opening, when we talked about joy being mixed with sorrow, it's kind of interesting too. Like last time that we talked, I thought like, these are inspiring women. Like they've had such loss, but yet are such beautiful human beings that like just you can feel the joy. Like I saw your face light up when you said 3 grandchildren and started talking about what else you have that still adds to your life. So thank you for that. And Paige.
I'm Paige Butler, and I live in the Woodlands, Texas, near Kathy. And I founded another local nonprofit and retired. And my heart was just still so passionate about substance abuse and helping families, walking alongside families, that I joined the MCOPE ladies, joined their board, and haven't regretted a minute of it. It's been an honor to work alongside these ladies. My story is a little different from theirs. I have not lost my loved one, my daughter. I like to think our story is one of hope, because it was a lot of heartache, lots of years of heartache for my husband and I. We've been married almost 40 years, and she's my oldest daughter and is doing amazing right now. But through the process, my husband and I gained custody of her son. And so we raised our 10-year-old grandson, who's just the joy of all of our lives. I have a younger daughter as well, and she has 2 sons. And then my daughter, Lauren, who's my Y in this, she has a little boy that turns 1 next week. So I have 4 grandsons now. And they're my big why, because, that's just why I do this, is for education and just keeping the message alive. So it's just so important to me. But I'm glad to walk alongside these ladies, and I'm so proud of them for sharing their journey as well.
So for our listeners who don't know what MCOPE is, Kathy or Kim, you want to share with us exactly what MCOPE is and what you do?
MCOPE was, we started because 4 moms, we met in a grief group here in the Woodlands. It's called GRASP. It's Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. And after talking to each other and everything, we realized that we all felt this need to share, in the community, get awareness out there, because we had all felt so isolated and so on when we were walking, this journey with our children. And so we started this group. We did an awareness event in 2021 and brought a lot of the community out and resources and things to be able to share that. I know personally, when I first found out about Josh's substance use and how bad it was, I had 1 phone number in my phone to call. And luckily, the person was still at it. And so he was able to guide me to the first treatment center, and we went from there. But I really didn't know anything about it. People weren't talking about it. There was a lot of stigma, a lot of shame, and so on. And so we decided that we had to find some type of purpose in the pain that we were feeling and try to keep other families from having to deal with that. So our other founder that's not on here today is Sarah Hall, and she lost her son a few years back. And so we decided that this is, we had to do something. So we came together and created MCOPE.
So since 2021, you guys have been going strong. How have you picked up momentum? What pieces have you added that have helped people walk this path?
We have 4 pillars that kind of guide us. And we've had these since the beginning, which was awareness, prevention, education, and remembrance. But when we first began, it was really the awareness. It was, having that awareness event. And then as we grew, we started the Texas Memorial Walkway, which the first year we had 66 pictures on it. And these are pictures of people in Texas that have been lost to drugs or alcohol. It's grown since then. We now have over 325 pictures of people that we take to different events. So we kind of started that way. But from there, about a year into it, we did start partnering with other people to go into schools and speak. And we've learned more about Narcan. We've been able to get Narcan that we are able to give away to people. We've learned how to use it, so how to train other people. So that's kind of that education and prevention aspect of things. And so we've just kind of grown from there, getting out in the community and talking to small groups and large groups. Whoever will listen, we'll talk to them. And so that's kind of how it's changed over the years. And it's getting very busy. As Kim can tell you, because she does volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers.
Well, since you already went there, I'm just going to ask you if someone is interested in volunteering with MCOPE, what does that look like and how would they go about being able to volunteer for you?
So there's a place on our website that you can go to and click I want to volunteer, and that will send information to me. And then I will load them into our database. And whenever we have events or needs for volunteers, we'll post those up and then invite people to come and volunteer with us. So this is an entirely volunteer run organization. We don't have any paid members on our team. So we definitely need our volunteers. The 4 of us, can't do everything. So.
Well, thanks for that. And I think too, like community partners too, like other treatment centers or just folks in the community that have a shared interest in making sure that people are educated, that there's prevention that's offered. Kim, let me ask this question. And what would you say to someone that called you and said, Kim, I just found out that my son or daughter overdosed and they're gone? What's the first thing you say to that person?
I think you just have to be there for those people. I mean, obviously we understand, but there are no words. I mean, it's just being there, comforting them and letting them speak and be in the moment with them, I think is the most important thing that you can do. Talking about their child and not just the addiction, but who that person was and remembering them. I think is very important. And then, trying to point them in the direction that maybe they need to go to. I know in the beginning, for me, I wanted to seek treatment for myself immediately. I needed support. I needed community. It's not everybody does. And not everybody does at that time. We may tell them about GRASP, or we may tell them about other organizations that can help, but they may not be ready at that time. So just letting them grieve and being there with them and then pointing them in the right direction when they're ready.
Thanks for that. Working in treatment, I get that question brought to me sometimes, and it's tough because I'm not part of that, right? Like I've never received that phone call. So I don't feel like I'm qualified to, kind of be the receiver of that news, but that person chose me to tell. So now I have to know what to do with it. And I think so often that people just don't know what to say, and they don't want to say the wrong thing. So I think that was really solid advice, for folks. And then for the folks that are actually grieving, knowing that there is help out there, knowing that there's organizations where they can share their story and someone there really does get it because they've walked in their shoes. And I think that kind of creates a bond that clearly I see, through MCOPE and through the people I've met at your events, it's actually beautiful. I know at one of your events that you had for overdose awareness, she was like 12 or 13 years old. And she, I talk to everybody I see. I don't know a stranger, and I was asking this 12 or 13-year-old girl, like, so is this the first time that you've been here? She said, no, I've been here before. It's my favorite thing to do every year because I lost my dad to an overdose. And when I come to this, I feel so loved. I feel so cared for. She even said, I feel so connected. And it wasn't scripted. Her mom wasn't telling her what to say. Her mom was standing right next to her, which, her dad, her husband. But it was just like, yes, this is it, right? Like hearing that kid say that, just like I walked on cloud nine all day. It's a tragedy when there is a loss, but knowing that there's organizations like MCOPE that give that back to the community and help people through like a time that is just unthought of. It's a place where no mom ever wants to be. No mom ever wants to be there, but yet moms are there. And so through your grief work that you did before getting into MCOPE, what are some things that you want to share with our listeners that if they're experiencing grief after loss, that you could kind of guide them on? How do you answer that when someone calls up to you, Kathy, and is looking for some guidance?
Most important thing that I heard early on, within a couple days, a friend of mine had lost her son, several years earlier. And she came over and she said, there's no words, because there's nothing that's going to make you feel any better. And she goes, I really don't have any advice except for one thing. And that's that you have to remember that everybody grieves differently. And, asked her what that meant. And she said, you just have to remember that many marriages break up after the loss of a child. Many families start out of, just arguing or issues, with the other siblings and things like that, because of the responses that maybe the parents are taking or the kids. And so she just said that you have to remember everybody is going to grieve differently. And so you only know how a mom feels. You're a mom. You know how it feels to lose your son, but you don't know really how your husband feels, because he's a father and there's a different relationship. And you don't know how your son feels because he's a sibling and there's a different relationship. And so you just have to be aware of that. And I have to say, after I heard that, it just made a lot of sense, because I was seeing things that I thought, why is my husband acting this way? He must not have loved him as much as I did, which is crazy talk. And, but I also told him what my friend had said. And I think that after that, we were a lot more aware of how each other were feeling, or we kind of could sense when we each needed our space, or we each needed to talk, or only one of us wanted to talk and the other person's only going to listen, and that's it. We could kind of understand that because we knew that we were feeling things at different times and feeling different things. And that helped. And I've told other people that have lost people after me. And afterwards, they kind of said the same thing. It's like, thank you. I realized after you said that, I saw what was happening. And so we were just, giving each other more grace within the family and the extended family and so on, with how to deal with each other.
Mm. Paige, I know your situation is a little bit different, right? Like you and your husband became the primary caregiver of your grandson, and that happens, not just through the addiction, but also through loss. Like I'm sure you have some groups that you are connected with.
And just listening, I'm just, the word connection is so huge to me. Just going back to what Kim said about what to do when someone calls. In my world, a lot of my friends sadly have experienced the loss. And, I just connect. I've learned from these later, I just reach out by text and say, I'm thinking about you. No response needed, but I haven't forgotten, and I think about you. I do that to my friends. I'm kind of walking beside a friend whose daughter just went to treatment, and it's just very hard right now. And I'm just trying to send her a text every couple of days, because you can just feel so alone. And I don't expect them to answer, but I want them to know that I'm just here for them to answer. So, the saying connection is such a remedy for so many things in this realm is so true. I started because of that. I need connection. I need people. I have isolated in the past, and it didn't help me at all. I got so alone, and it gets so dark when you're alone. for me. I have to connect. And part of my, the journey when we were at rock bottom, as a family and just trying to dig my way out, I couldn't find the groups that I wanted. And at the times that I wanted them, because I have a baby, strapped to me at 51, and so I started a grandmother's raising grandchildren support group, and we still meet 10 years later, and they're like family to me. Several of them are raising their grandchildren because they have lost their children. So that's a big theme in our group as well. All different reasons. It's not even all addiction that people end up in these circumstances. So our group isn't just focused on substance use addiction. It's just grandmothers that are in that role, but it is such a wonderful group. And then I'm also active in Narcan, which is like Al-Anon, but for family members that have struggled. And that group, it's for my healing. It's not to fix our children. That's their journey. And I learned that real quick that, first I got to put my oxygen mask on. And I had my grandson to raise. And so that forced me into it. I couldn't lay around. I had to be a mom and of a little one while I was being the one with somebody struggling terribly. And just so many things going on in the world. So I had to find a lot of support groups. So Narcan didn't meet when I needed it to meet. And so I was tired. I wasn't getting much sleep. So I started the Monday Narcan group up here in the Woodlands, and they are like my family. I recommend that group to everybody struggling, with a family member or a loved one or a best friend, or we have all of those things represented in our group. And it's we still do have some members that were part of the group that have lost their loved ones, and they've gone on to grafts, which I'll let Kathy and Kim tell more about. But some still come back to Narcan because we went through it together. And it is a group about your healing and one day at a time. And I don't know what the future holds. So all I can do is it just keeps me in a good frame of mind every week. And I just rarely meet. I missed it this week because I was working at an MCOPE event, but I was around a lot of people that are supportive. So I just, again, connection for anybody that's listening. Don't be alone. Don't isolate if you can. Find your people. I really had to work to find my people. Again, like Kathy said, my husband and I didn't even deal with addiction the same way that when it hit our family. We deal with things differently. So just find your people and don't expect your loved ones to find your people, to need your people. Like really work on just yourself and heal. And I found that my family started to heal once I did,
So that's a really healthy way of framing that, Paige, for sure. And I think a lot of times people haven't gotten to that space yet, so they don't recognize that they have their own work to do, like going to Narcan or being part of Al-Anon or any of these support groups. It's really for your own well-being, right? Trying to create a space of healing and for it to be kind of a healthy start. And it's much easier to blame someone else for what's going on versus doing some of the work ourselves, because family members have to adapt. So we also start having maladaptive behavior to either the substance use, disorder, or even in unhealthy situations when we suffer from grief and loss, right? Because sometimes stuff starts coming out sideways, which Kathy kind of alluded to, and that your friend that kind of shared that about each person grieves so differently. We do try to judge sometimes about like who has more or who's in more pain. And we never get to, there's no pain meter on that. And you can go days, weeks, months without feeling the pain. And then something just comes along that brings that reminder back. And so, I've had people say to me, when does it stop? When does the pain go away? When will I feel better? And I said, some days you will feel better and some days you won't. It's like the waves that crash up against your legs on the shoreline, right? They come in, they go out, and sometimes they're soft and gentle. Sometimes they're a little bit more forceful and they almost knock you over. So in terms of your kind of journey and experience, Kathy or Kim or both, what does that look like for you today?
Today, for me, I find it easier. I think the biggest thing, because I still have triggers like that. I'll have something, I'll hear a song or see something, or I'll see an expression on, my other son's face or something, Chris's face. And I think, oh my gosh, it's just like Josh. And I'll have those triggers and it brings, tears immediately. But those are a little fewer, farther fewer. I think for me, I'm finally getting to where, like, for instance, if I'm seeing Facebook memories come up with pictures of Josh, that where in the past it would make me cry, it would, just be like a knot in my stomach. And now I can, I think more times look at them and remember the fun that was behind them. So remember the situation that we were in when that picture was taken and smile at that Christmas that it was taken at, or whatever, the hike or whatever we were doing, and kind of smile about it or laugh about, whatever that picture is. So I can feel those things a little bit more than I could in the past. But that doesn't mean that, I still don't have triggers. It's not anything that you'll ever get over. I think we usually just say, you'll never get over it. You just try to get through it and make it a little easier every day.
Is there anything that you do besides connecting with people and that makes it easier?
For me, GRASP helped a lot, being able to talk to other people that understood exactly what I was going through. My friends were wonderful, but if the ones that, had never experienced this, which was most of them, after a while, I personally felt like, well, they don't want to hear me talk anymore about my son. They're tired of that. So it was nice to get to GRASP and talk to other people that understood, what I was feeling. And also that helped me to realize that I wasn't so far off. There were many times I would see a situation and think something kind of dark about a situation, a picture maybe that was actually a happy event for somebody else. And I didn't say anything. And then I would hear somebody in the GRASP group actually say, gosh, I saw a picture of this graduation and I felt this way. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I felt that same way. Okay, I'm not so alone. That has helped a lot. So GRASP, talking to people, talking to Kim, talking to Sarah, talking to Paige. Just talking to people that it has, really helped me get through all of this. I don't know that there's one single thing. I didn't do a lot of therapy. I probably should have, but I didn't. So I don't know, Kim, if you have anything else.
I think for me, it was a lot of connection, obviously. And then also through my faith, I prayed a lot. A lot of people will blame God or turn their back or just go the other way. I didn't. I really just leaned in and tried to connect that way a lot. And I think that really helped me. And then, just reading, I wanted to get into every single grief book. I wanted to, read about spirituality. I wanted to everything. It's just, you're just reaching for stuff to heal. I didn't want to stay in bed and just, be depressed and not go on living my life. A lot of people get depressed, and, we've had a lot of moms that have actually committed suicide because of the grief is just so much. And for me, I just refused to let the grief take over. I have, other children. I have a life that I need to continue living. And that was a choice that I made.
Thank you for that. I will say, what do you think Stephen and Josh would think about MCOPE if they could tell you something about it?
I can tell you, Stephen, well, I think they would both be proud. I'll let Kathy tell a little bit because I know I kind of almost know what she's going to say because she said it before, but I think they would be proud. I think they would be laughing at us a lot of times, just like, Mom, what are you doing? But I think they would be proud because neither one of them, none of them wanted to, woke up one day and said, I want to be an addict. They were good kids. They were very much loved. They came from good families. They were, Stephen he made the high school baseball team when he was a freshman. He was a very good athlete. He loved to fish. He was super funny. And, I sense a lot of his humor sometimes when I'm meeting other people and talking to other people, and I feel him with me. Kathy?
Okay, so you probably what I've always told people is that Josh would probably, I think he would be proud too, but I think he would be laughing at me because I have never been one to do any kind of public speaking. Doing this podcast is very much out of my comfort zone. When I decided to facilitate GRASP, which is peer led, so I knew I didn't have to be a psychologist or anything to run this, but it was very much out of my comfort zone, but I just felt like I needed it. So there's probably other people that did too. So I've always just said that he's probably laughing at me that, look what you've become. Uh, this is just not, this is not my mom.
Well, thank you for getting out of your comfort zone with us today. I know, Paige, your daughter, is she inspired and motivated by what you do?
Very much so. Honestly, we hope one day we can write a book or speak together. She lives in Michigan. Unfortunately, during her journey, she decided she needed to get away from Texas for a while, so she moved away, and she's in a nice relationship up there with a baby, so they'll be there for a while. But she's very proud. She loves, ever since I founded the other nonprofit, she's been proud. She's actually in school to become a nurse, and I think, with the long-term goal to go into addiction nursing, because that was a key person in her recovery that made an impact on her, someone that's actually felt what that feels like. So I like to think I inspired her to, stay in this area and try to use her experience to help others. She's taken Narcan back and passed it out to everybody. And she told me this week, she talked about her experience in her nursing class and got to change some views. They're doing mental health and addiction right now in clinicals. And she's like, I think I've got this. But she was able to, just shed some light and change some stigma in that class. I mean, my phone will probably ring on silent while we're here because she loves to call me every day and talk about what she's learned. And I just have to pinch myself that we're here because it's a long road to get here. She's 32, but I walk along a lot of these families and they need hope. They, a lot of them have other children that are just struggling too in the journey. And some have struggled because of, after the loss of their family member. And I just feel so, that it's just so necessary to show that some do recover. I've had survivor guilt, even with these ladies, why, with the years of struggle, why are we here? And, that kind of pushes me to, make a difference with that hope that I can bring. So in answer to your question, I do think we talk every day. We talk the same lingo. I never smoked a cigarette in my life. I mean, I knew nothing about, I knew nothing about this addiction, the world, the disease. But like Kim said, she poured herself in the book. I poured myself into learning everything I could, researching every professional that could help and treatment centers, and vetted all this information. I just felt the immediate need to share what I'd learned with others. So anyway, I think, our whole family is like that.
You mentioned making a difference. And one way that I believe MCOPE is making a difference, which is kind of a new endeavor, is through your blessing bags. And I keep learning more and more about these blessing bags, but share a little bit about your blessing bags and what the intention was behind those.
Well, we, Narcan, as Kathy mentioned, Narcan, getting more Narcan out into the community is very important to us. We know that the overdose deaths have been going down, but not necessarily the overdoses themselves. So that one key thing in that is that they feel like Narcan is making a difference, and, people are being saved so that they get that next day to be in recovery. we try to get as much Narcan out there as we can. And early this year, we really have focused on getting Narcan directly to people that struggle. While they can't use it on themselves, if it's sitting next to them, or if they see somebody else on the streets or where they are, they'll be more inclined to use it than just giving it to a mother or father that might pass it on to their kids. So one of our ways that we're doing that is through blessing bags, which we're starting the assembly, and a sober living transition home here up in this area is going to help us as volunteers assemble those bags. So it's really a community effort, but it is a backpack that has a blanket, Narcan, basic toiletries, a bus pass for a day, a Chick-fil-A sandwich, a granola bar, water, like kind of like a 1 to 2 day toolkit. Our two populations that we really felt they were important for is when people are released from incarceration. That's a really vulnerable time. They're 2 times as likely to overdose. Number one, they've been detoxed for a while that they're in jail. And then if they go out into the street, we know that's just a really vulnerable time. And even getting transportation to that next step can be a barrier to that next step. So we wanted to do as much as we could, even giving them this bag that has basic necessities, but more importantly, just saying you matter to somebody. You matter to us. We care. Somebody, you may not have any connection to your family anymore because of just repeated times. And so we just want to be that person that says, we care. Here's something to help you get to that next step. We also know in treatment, in recovery homes, they have to have rules, they have to have boundaries set up for protection of everyone there, and to encourage you to keep doing the next right steps. So sometimes they have to ask you to leave, and that's a real vulnerable couple of days too. And I talked to somebody at one of the big ones in the Houston area. And I said, what do you give them? When you have to give them that news, it's so hard, I know, to ask someone to leave. And they said, we don't give them anything. And that's terrible. So I presented the idea and they thought it was, a great idea. So those are kind of the two. We have a few homeless, a group that works with the homeless. So we have a few different avenues to distribute them. So we're excited about this, just again, to give some hope to someone that's in just that pivotal time where they can recover. We want to say you matter to people. So that's that project. And the bags are purple. We're spreading our purple out there. So we're excited about that. And then I'm also working on scholarships, getting the scholarship page up on our website. It's there now, but the application goes up and it will be March through May. It's a wonderful scholarship, and people that have either walked alongside someone in addiction, which we got some powerful essays last year on that, whether it be their mother, their father, their sister, their brother. That's one question that can be answered. Or people that are in recovery and their walk with recovery and their desire for higher education or a higher certificate of education, be it trade school. They do have to live, work, or go to school in Montgomery County. We've had some wonderful treatment centers in the past match our scholarship money. We gave out $6,000 in scholarships at our event last year. We're hoping even more this year will be given out. We had some great recipients, and we know they're doing great things in school right now that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to do. So that's hope too. Like both these projects to me scream hope. So I love that about MCOPE is that we focus on so many aspects of the journey.
Thank you for sharing about that. And when I listen to you speak, and I let all three of you speak, I think like I've heard hope a bunch of times. I've heard connection a bunch of times. And really also to add to that is just resilience and dedication. You have now created a purpose and through your passion, through your loss, that is helping so many other people, just like how addiction doesn't just affect the person who's using the substance, and it has that ripple effect, all the way out through the family and friends and all of that. So too can this healing that's happening through MCOPE and through the hope and the connection that you're creating in the community. And so truly just thank you so much for all that you're doing. I just, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that. And I know that other people do, because I think of that 12 or 13-year-old girl that told me that was the best part of her year every year. So thank you so much for being on Positive Recovery MD podcast. Thank you to our listeners. And this is a hard one for me because I feel like I'm just on the edge of feeling like I'm trying not to cry sometimes throughout this whole podcast. And it's because it's so impactful. Thank you for the difference that you're making in the lives of so many people.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecovery.com/podcast to sign up to get your daily positive interventions sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY. That's 877-476-2743. Our why is simple. We care. We are here to help.